ready to fly?
Okay.
Okay.
All right, go ahead.
All right, folks, we want to give y'all an update on the Hard Rock. As we've said, we'd like to give you as many updates as possible. We don't have anything major to report today, but just want to give you what we have. Our objectives have not changed here at the site. Life safety is still our #1 priority, then recovering the victims and recovering evidence, and then obviously keeping the site safe and getting the community back to normal as much as possible, getting these businesses back to normal. What we have is we're working with the engineers. We have a plan that's been worked that is very, very close to being finalized on the stabilization of the building, the shoring of the building. That's our first step. As engineers have come in and analyzed the building more and more, as we've said all along, they've codified what we said, that the building is unstable and it is unsafe. So we're going to shore the building up from the transfer deck, the big, large thick concrete deck, all the way up to the roof line. That will allow us to then safely begin recovery of the victims and evidence. And that process is going to take at least 2 months. Right now, the projected timeline is near the end of February. So once that happens, then we will take and begin the recovery of the victims' remains and recovery of evidence. It is a painstaking process, but once again, the goal is to make sure that no one loses their life or injury as we do this process. And so you should start to see some movement on that, actually as early as next week. We'll start to see equipment moving in, and then the installation of this shoring, which is basically some framing that goes up floor by floor by floor. It's quite a bit of it, but the goal is to make sure that the building will not collapse and cause any further damage, or certainly no loss of life or injury. That's kind of where we are right now, but you can see that timeline clearly taking you that deep into next year. We expect this thing to go, getting the final demolition done takes us well after next summer, but you will see it shrink as it goes along. So as more of the structure starts to come down and get lower, the site will continue to shrink, and we will obviously keep you up to date throughout the process as that happens. Colin?
We'd just like to add that we continue to communicate with the businesses daily, either through conference call en masse or individually, or I should say individually. We're helping them get deliveries. There's a couple construction sites on the uptown side of Canal that we're making sure that they're getting deliveries, including deliveries with cranes. It's been a lot of movement here, trying to keep the businesses where they need to be as far, to the best of our ability, get them where they need to be as far as getting them as back to normal as possible. So what that also includes is behind me here, we have created a pedestrian walkway, a detour walkway that actually goes all the way through past the State Palace, kind of around the back of the zone, and continues down that 1,000 block of Canal Street. So you can get access to all of Canal Street on the uptown side with a slight detour. That also obviously helps with the Sanger reopening yesterday, which was great. We didn't have any major issues with traffic. People were very patient and very excited about getting back into the Sanger, which is good, so that's going to continue. Still working with business on Burgundy Street. Unfortunately, their proximity to the building is that we can't have them open yet, but pretty much every other business has been reopened. We also were able to move the fence in at Burgundy and Canal, so you have full visibility between both blocks of Canal, uptown and downtown side, which was something that the businesses had asked for, and we're really happy that we were able to get that together. Realizing that, should the work dictate, we may need to push that fence back out again. We're hoping that that's not the case, but it's obviously something that could happen. Other than that, we just continue to work with the businesses, encourage them to apply for the SBA loan program through Small Business Administration if they need it, and just continue to try and do as much community outreach about this area. All of these special events going on, that work is still continuing. We're now looking at Mardi Gras, obviously. We just came from a meeting, actually. Chief was there as well, with all of our public safety, Chief Ferguson, about, there is going to have to be some decisions made about parade routes and things for Mardi Gras that we're already started working through with the special events section at NOPD and the Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Preparedness, and we're going to continue those conversations and have a good, viable plan very shortly for how we want to address not having the 1,000 block of canal available during Mardi Gras 2020.
Any questions from Fox 8?
Yes, so Chief, just to recap, I know that you were saying work should be done as soon as next week, and you talked about building that barrier. Can you just go over again, building the barrier you said to the roof?
Not a barrier, shoring it's called. So basically you're putting shoring in the building that will support the structure. So the fear is that the thing would collapse. Once again, we had a catastrophic collapse here, as everyone's well aware of. We don't know what caused it yet, and we don't know what's stopping it from happening further in the building. Engineers have been in and assessed it, and so the best plan, the safest plan, was to shore up, install shoring in the building from that heavy transfer deck, which we believe is capable of supporting it, and build shoring all the way up to the roof line, and then we can safely work in the building for the recovery of both victims, evidence, and then to begin to dismantle the building.
I would say imagine like floor jacks. You jack up, basically support each floor all the way up, and it creates a tremendous amount of stability as you move up towards the top.
Telemundo?
Yep, good both.
Yes, it's Marissa Rodriguez with Telemundo. Do you have any idea once the work starts, how long it would take to recover the victims? And one of the victims being a Mexican national, the Mexican community in New Orleans are wondering why it has taken so long to recover two bodies, because they're used to dealing with earthquakes in Mexico, and they say that the work is usually a lot faster. So they're wondering why it's taken so long to recover this Mexican national. What would you say to the Mexican community in New Orleans?
I want people to understand that the building's still very, very dangerous. And obviously, when you have a fatality, it's very difficult for everyone to deal with. The community, I think, is very invested in it. And obviously, the family's hurting more than anyone else, particularly right now at the holidays. However, when you have a building that has collapsed completely on the ground, you're going through a pile of rubble, it's dangerous, but it's not in danger of collapsing further on people. What you have here is a partial collapse and a building that's still very unstable. And if you go in there and start picking through the debris, which is where the victims are buried, under the debris that's up there, 8, 10 stories, even 12 stories high, thinking about where they are, actually their remains are, you start picking through that and cause further collapse, you put the rescuers in danger. And it's just simply not acceptable at any time that you would get someone killed or hurt trying to recover the remains. And it's very difficult. It's a difficult message to send. We do stay in touch with the families. And so I would urge people to understand that if there was any possible way, and we have evaluated it with our experts, we have experts here who have been all over the country, and they were in Puerto Rico after Hurricane Maria, that if it could be done, we would have done it. We then brought in experts, military experts, who have dealt with these situations in war zones to see what they could advise us on. And no one could feel safe about getting it done without putting the rescuers at extreme risk. And to do it, the risk has to simply be zero for the rescuers.
How long it would take to reach the remains after
To your first question, to your first question about the timeline, we know it's going to take 2 months at least to shore it up. So we're talking about the end of February to get it shored up. And then it's going to take, we figure, about 30 days to get the victim recovery and the evidence recovery. So somewhere in that timeline, once we get it shored up, we'll start taking components out. The risk to the first responders is the debris that's hanging over their heads. If you look at that building, you see concrete slabs dangling, and the victims are below that. So as you start to take that debris down, you'll get down to where the victims are, and then eventually get to the remains and get the recovery done.
Last questions from the advocate?
Yeah, I was hoping, Chief, you could talk a little bit about how Carnival will complicate your efforts to stabilize this site.
Carnival, I want to be clear, Carnival will not complicate our efforts. The efforts are on the recovery of stabilizing this building, making it safe, and the recovery of the victims. That will take precedence over Carnival. It's just a fact. Carnival cannot drive what happens here with recovering the remains of these people. So we're working to ensure that Carnival can go on, but it will not drive the decision making here. The decisions here will drive Carnival.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Thank you. You stole the line.